Should it be Brock Glenn or Luke Kromenhoek as the Florida State quarterback?
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into Locked On Seminoles. I am your host, Brian Smith. Thank you for making this your first listen each and every day. I truly appreciate you stopping in to talk Seminoles football with me. Today's show is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off of your first purchase. Brock Glenn, Luke Kromenhoek. Who would you go with if you were Mike Norvell and the Florida State coaching staff? Today's podcast is going to eventually delve into a broader spectrum, but the first thing and the most important topic for today, the one you should know, Florida State has a quarterback battle despite, and this is coming, Mike Norvell completely and utterly denying it. That's going to happen. Why? Because he wants his quarterbacks to stay happy and he wants their families and everybody else to stay happy. Every college coach has to go through this. It's unfortunate, but it's true. But we're not Mike Norvell. He's not in the conversation, nor is anybody else on his staff. And both quarterbacks played, obviously not great, but both of them had their moments. So let's talk about what I saw first off, and then a little bit of a stat line, and then some projection based on what we've seen. So here goes. My first thought is both of them, not one or the other, but both of them have improved their arm strength considerably, even since high school. To put it in a more clear perspective, I know Luke pretty well from his high school days, known him since he was a sophomore. I went to see him play up in Savannah during his senior year. He's got a pretty good arm then. Like it was really good. And it was better, quite honestly, than many college quarterbacks. But seeing him against Duke made it clear that it's taking even more power and adding more and more strength. Because when he ripped that first pass, think about this, his first collegiate pass was the drop in the end zone by Kentron Portier. It was absolutely a money ball. And it was a bomb. Now, he can rip it, and he could have thrown it a little lower, but not only did he have the arm strength to get it to Kentron, he had the intelligence to know the level of the pass. Level one is just a BB, get it out now, like a little flat pass. You want your running back to get upfield, get his head around to see something. Level two is over the linebacker in front of the safety. That one that he threw had some arc to it, over the defensive backs who weren't in horrible position, but I mean, he literally just dropped it in the bucket. We saw something there that is not normal. And I'm like, okay, I knew Luke was pretty good, but this is a good start. And he had a couple other throws. There was one to the sideline that was a low throw to keep it away from the DB. And there were a couple of throws out in the flat. Is his head spinning? 100%. Is he ready? Not a chance. True freshman quarterbacks and playing time need to be very limited. But that's why he came into the season number 3. With that being stated, I also saw Glenn play in the Elite 11 right before his senior year. Now, that's a couple years ago now, so there's more time, but his arm's pretty comparable. If I had to guess, Luke's is like 2% better or something, but he's got a gun too. His arm's improved way more than I thought it did. Like that in the second half, he hit a slant to Hakeem where he kind of double caught it. For those of you watching the broadcast, I was just going back over that play and reversing it and watching. Couldn't have thrown it much better. The drop that I discussed yesterday on the podcast that part of the title was Atrocious Offense or whatever. Go back and listen to that. It's about 13 minutes, and it defines that first quarter and how Florida State lost the game there. I'll briefly rehash that in a minute, but he threw some darts like that. He threw a couple passes outside that were right there. His problem has nothing to do at all with his right arm and his shoulder. It has nothing. I know it's an old phrase, but one of the commentators for ESPN made a good statement on Friday night. He's like, Brock is seeing ghosts. The second interception he threw to the linebacker, I mean, the guy literally only took a few steps backwards and to his left. Brock threw it right to him. I mean, just horrific. He doesn't process fast enough, and sometimes this is common with young guys. He sees something pre-snap, and by gosh, that's where I'm going. Terrible idea. Manny Diaz and his staff are very good with quote-unquote post-snap looks. And that's why they do what they do, because it only takes one play like that, and predominantly playing fairly conservative in the back end, and the ball's going the other way. Show one look, bring somebody up, bring somebody back, etc. Some basic stuff. But on that particular pick, it was as generic as it gets. So I'm not sure if his pre-snap look was even good. I don't know. And the receiver was going on. So maybe the receiver was off on where he was supposed to go. Maybe Brock thought he was going to just come back. I don't know. There was a misread between the two players, which we saw a lot of. But he also ran the ball pretty well. He had a really good read option play where he completely fooled the defensive end. Both of them escaped the pocket and got good yardage because they're both good athletes. So those are the things that I noticed. Now let's go into statistically. And this is just for the record, just so you remember what it is, and we can just go on from there. Brock was 9 of 19 for 110 yards, had the 2 picks, had a fumble. He also had the second pick where the guy was on the line. It should have been an interception, but he was on the line, or at least it was ruled that way. Not a very good performance. Luke Kromenhoek was 3 of 7 for 19 yards. He had a few scrambles. Kromenhoek had -2 yards. He got sacked like 4 times. He's nowhere near ready, like not even in the stratosphere in terms of his ability to read defenses yet. And Brock had 9 carries for 45 yards. He had a couple nice scoots outside the pocket. He can go. I told y'all he could run. I might have underestimated. He's a little faster than I thought in a straight line. So with that, where are they in terms of playing time and the battle? This is what I would do. And I know they're not going to admit any of this on air or in any form of a article, what have you, but Florida State needs to play both quarterbacks moving forward. They're not going to beat Miami. That's not a news flash. This just in my prediction on Friday, I'm picking Miami. Okay, that I'm going to do my prediction podcast on Friday like I do every week. I am picking Miami. It's not a secret. They're going to win this game going away. You must get both quarterbacks meaningful reps to figure out the battle. I don't have the answer because there's not enough data to have an answer. There's just not. We need every single game moving forward. Not one, but both quarterbacks to get meaningful reps. Maybe, and it's possible, one of them all of a sudden will take a jump up. It's not likely, and here's why I say it. Studying quarterback play statistically over the last few years, especially this past season, it is incredibly rare that a quarterback, quote unquote, gets it. But those things I was talking about with Brock a minute ago, post-snap reads, until they have taken at least, and this is best case scenario, 400 passing attempts at the college level. Not 400 snaps, passing attempts, about a season. The light tends to kind of go on the turnover-worthy plays in terms of whether you're running with the football, securing it, throwing the football, setting protections. Neither one of them knows what they're doing with that yet. I'm going to go out on a limb. And also just having a moxie and body language. Like when Brock threw that second pick, his body language, even the ESPN sideline reporter, she duly noted his body language was pretty bad. All of those things will improve, but you got to get there. That's why they both need to play quite a bit right now. When one pulls in front of the other, whomever it may be, so be it. Right now, Florida State has a quarterback battle. It has started. I didn't think Luke would be as athletic and as powerful with his arm as he was. And this guy I've known for a while. Florida State's strength and conditioning staff has done a good job, and so is Luke taking care of his body. They've got an interesting situation, and I think Florida State fans should be excited about that because, let's be honest, what else is there to be excited about right now? Because so many things are goofy on the offense. Defensively, we've got plenty of positives. I'll get to that here in a second. But we're going to break down the Duke loss, some of the things on offense, defense, and special teams generically. And then we're going to talk about the Miami rivalry since it is Miami week. That's next on Locked On Seminoles. ZBiotics pre-alcoholic probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists who tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break down the byproduct. Just remember to take ZBiotics with your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. Here's how to use it. For best results, make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night. Next, pace yourself. hydrate, and get a good night's sleep. Finally, wake up feeling refreshed and ready to start the day. Go to ZBiotics.com/LockedOnCollege to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use code LockedOnCollege at checkout. ZBiotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied, they'll refund the money, no questions asked. Remember to head to ZBiotics.com/LockedOnCollege and use code LockedOnCollege at checkout for 15% off. So the offense was bad. That is the understatement of the night. But why? Here are a few of the notes that I have, and I'm not going to beat it up too bad. And we'll get on to some of the things with the special teams, which were really good, and the defense thereafter. Number one here. I'm glad that they are taking the time to put new linemen in the lineup. They're moving guys in and out, like Ferguson rotated in and out with Otto, like early had some moments that were pretty good. Jalen's played tackle earlier in the season, played some right tackle. He's moved inside to guard. I don't care which one, Otto or Early's playing right or left. I just want them to get it settled here pretty soon. They need to definitively have starters. It would be best if Ferguson won the guard spot. Then you could kick Early back outside to tackle because they're losing some guys now. They're going to be much less inexperienced next year. Not that their offensive line could be much worse up until this Duke game, but that's something to think about. Here's what I did like with Early. I just, for whatever reason, I focused on him a little bit. He's getting lower in his blocking stance. That's a good thing. He's also timing it better. He's also a little quicker to the block. He angle blocked a few times for Cam and for Tofili, and they were pretty good. So to that point, statistically, Florida State's running backs had a decent night. To be honest, I'm really surprised that it went this well. But Cam 14 for 63 had like, I want to say 3 different runs, if I recall correctly, that were over 10 yards, maybe 4. So he got stuffed a few times too, but it wasn't terrible. Tofili had a couple of big losses that really hurt him. He had 9 carries for 23 yards. Brock had 9 for 47. Of course, you had the fake punt for Morlock, but if you take away the sack-adjusted yardage, they had 6 sacks. It could have been 8 or 9. They got lucky it wasn't double digits, honestly. The sack-adjusted average for Florida State's run game was 5.6, and that's with a terrible passing game. Duke is just middle of the road, slightly below average in run defense, but they gashed them a few times. This is a humongous step up. So that's good. The positive with it is also going to have to come with the negative that I'll get to in a second, but I'm just going to say it. Pass protection leaves much to be desired. It's an extremely complex topic. I'm going to hit on it more this week, a little bit more detail, but here's what you need to know. Right now, the communication between Mo and the 2 young guards is bad. A couple of times I could see what Mo's body language after the play, like he'd point to something, he'd get a clarification from one of the guards, and then they didn't do it, and Mo would be mad after the play. Like, they're not communicating well. Something is not right there. Of course, we don't know the details. The guys are going scot-free. Oftentimes, that's at a passing situation. And if a defensive lineman in any way, shape, or form is in the A-gap getting pressure, I don't care if you have Tom Brady in his prime, you are not going to be a consistently successful football team. That is F-. So that's their biggest problem up front. And the other thing is they just need more reps with the young guys. It's still, for one game from the last of this in running, is considerably better. So at least they have that going for them. Also, I like the play calling. Got a nice mix. Early on, had the screen to Tofili that went down. They used slants better. They had some openings. And they also took the time to find ways to get the quarterbacks outside the pocket, a little more RPO, etc. So I'm good with that. The defense, talking about them, just fight. That's the biggest thing I took from the defense. They fought really hard all night long. Only gave up 180 yards. I know Duke dialed it down to beyond conservative. They don't trust Malik Murphy. That's very obvious. But once they got up 17-3, they were like, we're not losing this game. You're going to have to earn it with your quarterbacks. And to be honest, Manny Diaz had a reason to think that way. I'm not saying he was wrong, but once Sam Singleton took the second half kickoff to the house, by the way, shout out to Sam. I saw him in high school. He's fast, but I didn't know he was that fast. that changed the game a little bit, and Duke still played. I hated Duke's play calling in the second half. They played not to lose. Still got to take more shots than they did, but and they got away with it because Florida State just shot themselves in the foot. 4 turnovers. So the defense fought through all that. They still couldn't get a turnover, though, because Duke just ran the ball in the middle of the line and threw 10-yard hitches and less pretty much all night. They were not going to give the ball up. And when you lose a turnover battle like Florida State did, I mean, four turnovers led to 17 points for Duke. That's the game. That's the game. And then on top of it, and I'm not trying to pick on it because it was a good play in general, early in the game when Florida State had Duke backed up, they punted, and he got partial block. If that ball is completely blocked, if it was both hands and just slightly better angle, and we talk about little things, winning and losing games, the game also could change right there. It's either a safety or a touchdown. The game is, punt blocks change a game more than any other play. Mentally, it changes what a coach wants to do on third downs moving forward because they don't want to be punting. They're afraid of another one. Like, it changes everything. If you have a kickoff return for touchdown like Florida State did, you just squib it or to get them away, which they did. You can avoid that again. If you got to punt again, that's a problem. So that was a missed opportunity. Florida State did have long field goals. By the way, Fitz is awesome. Mastromano had a punt inside the 10. The special teams were just very, very good overall. So I was happy with that. Finally, and I knew that Malik Murphy wasn't a guy that was going to get out and beat you with his feet, but they contained well. And for the most part, even against the running back, they had a couple gash plays. I'll talk about that one sec. But they contained better than they have even last season's defense, which was maybe as good a big play defense as there was in the country with getting into the backfield in 2023. They contained better. They had better leverage. They stayed square to the line. Linebackers tackled better. My player of the game was Justin Cryer. He had that thump. Third quarter, early fourth quarter, where he just loaded up. I think it was a swing pass, if I remember right, but just tackled through the ball carrier just the way you want to do it. I'm like, okay, this is what we're talking about. Omar had some plays. They were just good opportunities. Barker came down in the box and hit. I thought the defense made a lot of stuff go in the way that you want. Now, of course, you got to talk about the negatives too. And there's no avoiding this. So here we go. My God, are the receivers as non-clutch as you can be. I'm just going to go through some of it here. I've got it written down. I'm going to try to go in chronological order. And again, I covered this first one because I just talked about the first quarter or so from the Saturday podcast because it cost them the game. First quarter cost them the game. Let's not back away from that because if Florida State doesn't turn the ball over, they win this game by double digits. Duke is terrible on offense without turning the ball over. That's really hard to do, but they're that bad. So Benson drops the slant. He's wide open. Let me give you a scenario here. For any of you old school Noles out there, this is the kind of play that Florida State's second, third, fourth, fifth receiver, no BS. In the 90s, like Florida State's fifth receiver, oftentimes some highly touted freshman or something, they'll give him a few snaps in the first half of a game against a team like Duke. Duke was far worse then, I know. They'll take a slant, have two guys in front of them, and they'll house it because they make the first guy miss. They'll shimmy on another guy and give him a stiff arm, and then they're the fastest guy in that pocket of players. They're taking it. Well, Benson never got that chance. Why? He just dropped it. Right in the hands, dropped it to the ground. That's terrible. End up kicking a field goal on that drive. That's 4 points you lose. The first pass of the game for his career, for Luke Kromenhoek, the bomb. You could not have thrown it better. Touchdown taken off the board. You lose 7 points. Then finally, the pass that Hakeem dropped from Luke, another one, it was a tough situation too. In between play, NFL play. He's completely looking at the safety, and there's a good bit of space. He's catching the ball, and he's looking, can't do it. And it wasn't a bang-bang either. He had more than a step between him and the next guy. And I've seen Hakeem live, up close, from the sidelines. He is a tremendous athlete. Once he gets the ball there, he's capable of running you over or making you miss. It is not a lack of physical skill. I can assure you. For those of you who've seen him in Doak or anywhere else, I'm sure you would agree in warmups, that doesn't look like your normal 215-pound receiver in how he moves laterally and how he adjusts on the fly. Yet he took his eyes off the football and dropped a bomb. So they lost 2 bombs and a third down red zone opportunity just because of drops. Potentially they lost 3 touchdowns just there. Plus you got the punt that they almost, it was a partial block, still good play, but that could have been a touchdown or at least a safety. On top of that, the number of penalties and the timeliness with it was bad. And then again, the miscommunication up front, holding penalties, false start, miscommunication on who blocks who. There was the play I talked about. Literally, they had 3 guys in that first drive attack 1 defender, the center and both guards. That is the definition of the worst, literally the worst play on an offensive line I've ever seen on assignment in my lifetime. I've been watching football since the early 80s. I'm 51 years old. I've never seen a worse play. Florida State's interior offensive line is in this shape for one reason. It's not just coaching. It's recruiting and talent evaluation. Florida State whiffed in the 20 and 21 classes. 20, they were coming in as a staff. I get it. But 21 had to be a home run because of that, and they failed. 22 didn't do much. Got a little bit better, but now you're playing catch up, and it's hard, and that's why so many transfers are in there. And for whatever reason, it just hasn't worked this year. That's just the reality. But Florida State killed itself. They should have had a touchdown on the opening drive. So everything that they did was self-inflicted. At minimum, they should have beat Duke by 2 scores. Minimum. Duke sucks on offense, and I know they just tried to grind it out because they got an early lead. I don't think they're capable against a defense that was beating them at the line of scrimmage like Florida State of doing much. That's just my opinion. But it is what it is. When we come back, it's going to be time to talk about the Miami rivalry. It is Miami-Florida State week, the Noles and the Canes. It's a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to the crossover with Alex Dono. It's later this week. Should be an entertaining crossover, I can assure you. Alex obviously is a big Canes fan, doesn't like Florida State, but that's going to be fun. But I'm going to give my thoughts on why this game is important for 2 prime reasons. That's next on Locked On Seminoles. Have you downloaded the Gametime app yet? If you have not, you need to do so because it's a great way to get tickets to concerts, to plays, to football games, MLB baseball. That's a bucket list thing for me, and anything else pretty much you want to do in terms of a live event. And by the way, there's nothing quite like a live event. Gametime Picks is something inside the app you should check out. It helps filter out all the fluff, and you can only get this incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Check it out for that reason alone. For me, the reason I like it best, once I type in something, Florida State football, whatever it is, and I pick a game, you select a seat, and it will give you the actual view of that venue from your seat. That's pretty cool, first off. And second, takes the guesswork out of it. Speaking of, make sure that you take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime Picks. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Game time. Miami versus Florida State. Seminoles versus Noles. Hate versus hate. This is Florida State versus Miami, and it's one of the prime reasons I decided to take this job with Locked On because this rivalry is awesome. If you don't like the Miami versus Florida State rivalry because you're not a fan of either team, that's fine. You don't have to. Just like college football, just like competition, just like the way these teams get after it. Even when one team is up and the other is down, quite often, this rivalry will still produce a very close game. Why that is, I don't know, but that's the history of rivalries in general. And Florida State Miami is no different. So, talking about the ability to win the game, lose the game, how it's going to play out, there are 2 things that I want to discuss on why this is important. We saw Florida State put in a lot of effort against Duke. There's no doubt that Florida State deserved, from a defensive perspective, to be the best team in the country that night in terms of what they did. 180 yards that you gave up is insane. And they lost. but the offense hung them out to dry. 4 turnovers. I mean, they really didn't score except for that first drive on a true drive. And without some kind of help or breakdown from Duke, that's bad. My question is this: against Miami, they're not going to beat Miami. Miami would have to be -4 in turnovers or something like that to lose to Florida State. That'd be my guess. But this game is important because you need to see what kind of buy-in your program has. It's a rivalry game, so my first thought is, well, everybody's going to be. Then I stopped myself when I was thinking about this podcast and prepared my notes, because it's not a lock that Florida State is going to be in that. It's not. Florida State could very well be in a scenario where if they get down 27-3 or something at half, there will be some people kind of checked out. We're going to find that out in this game. Number 2, we're going to find out a little bit, I hope, about one or both of the quarterbacks. As I mentioned earlier this game, or today, Florida State has not one but 2 quarterbacks that have some talent. We just haven't seen them enough to really know which one should be the guy that'll win the quarterback battle between Brock Glenn and Luke Kromenhoek. One's a redshirt freshman, one's a true freshman. It's kind of hard to know. But here are a few points about why it's important that they get reps and we see them do something meaningful, because they're going up against the number 1 passing offense in the nation. Miami has 388.4 yards per game passing. Scoring offense, Miami's pretty good there too. They're number 2 in the nation, and just barely. They just moved down. They're 48.3. Shout out to the Hoosiers. They're 48.7. Never thought I would see that. They're also, in total offense, Miami's pretty darn good there as well. They're number 1 in the nation, 577.3. So we're going to see both these quarterbacks for Florida State, I would assume, get a chance against the Canes. They're going to have to throw it around at least through halftime, and I imagine they'll struggle some. And certainly Miami, based on the national statistics, their talent, and everything they have, I'm kind of concerned about the health of quarterbacks for Florida State, because looking at the sacks, Miami, they have 23 already. They're 10th in the nation. And Florida State, oh boy, defensively, the Canes get after it. And on that point, Florida State, they're not doing a very good job of protecting the quarterbacks. They've given up 20 sacks, which is 112th in the nation. So we're going to see what these quarterbacks for Florida State can do. It is the definition of trial by fire, or combat, as it may be. So this is a big game, even though Florida State's not going to win. Do we have buy-in? Do we? And for the players that are not in their final year at Florida State, do they want to stick around? We're going to find out some of this stuff, backstory, probably after the season, but I'm curious. And then the quarterback, Glenn, Kromenhoek, I don't know which one it will be. But the buy-in for those 2 teams to go along with this rivalry is really important. Just to kind of finish up here, I just want to add something about the rivalry in general. If you're not excited about rivalry games like this, why are you watching college football? You get to see the development in the long term of a team, good, bad, or indifferent, every year. A couple years ago, when Florida State just kicked the bejesus out of Miami down at Hard Rock Stadium, 40-something to 3 or something like that, whatever it was, everybody said, Miami's done. They certainly looked like they were done, but you got to give Miami's credit where it's due. Their players have worked hard. They revamped a roster that was garbage. And they quite honestly have done a lot of things. Well, it wasn't garbage. It was a lot of garbage with some good players mixed in. And now they got a bunch of seniors. They've got a bunch of guys that are bought in, even though they were NIL additions like Cam Ward. They've got a really good roster. But Florida State has nothing to lose. This is house money. And these are the kind of things that are fun. I want to see all the little things around the game beyond just the final score and the stats. You should too. No matter if you're a Canes fan or a Florida State fan or just a fan of college football, this is why college football is the most unique sport on planet Earth. The way the fans follow it and the way the pageantry of everything, it's awesome. So with that, please like this podcast. Please share it. Please hit that notification bell. And if you'd like, I'd truly appreciate it if you're watching on YouTube, comment. What you think about the quarterback battle is what I'm most interested in. But if you have something else, by all means, comment on that too. After this, check out Locked On ACC. Kent Gibbs, he's a good guy, even though he's an NC State fan, played at NC State. And that crazy Alex Dono guy that's a Miami fan, they host the ACC show. They're going to be talking about this rivalry game and several other things this week. Give them a listen next. Everybody have a good one, and I will see you tonight. For those of you that want to check it out, having a live show at 9:30, so make sure you check that out tonight.